Hi everyone, this is Mindy Eggen for Honeybee Stamps, and in today's video I'm going to be combining some new products from the Rainbow release along with some oldies but goodies, including this Radiant Stencil. The stamp set that I'm going to be using today is called Look for the Rainbow, and this is from the new Rainbow release. I really loved these clouds and I thought it would be nice to create a whole background filled with these clouds. I lined up these two clouds on my 80-pound white cardstock, and I want to show you a trick. Sometimes with stamps that have a lot of that centerpiece, you can get a bubble in there. So what I'll do is once I pick it up with the Door of the Misty, I'll pick up the stamp just a little bit to release that bubble and then push back down on the stamp. That way you're not getting ink transferred onto that middle piece that needs to be white. I'm going to stamp these down in the Intense Black ink from Honeybee Stamps, flip my cardstock and stamp them again, and I will clean them off and fill in a few more of the areas on my cardstock so I have a whole panel of clouds. Then I can take the coordinating die, hold them down with some low tack tape, and die cut these out. I'm going to be creating a rainbow going all the way around the edge of my card, and I'm using Distress Oxides for this along with a blending tool. I started with worn lipstick in one corner, moved on to dried marigold, then a little bit of squeezed lemonade. I'll move on to twisted citron down in that corner, then salvaged patina, and I'll finish off with wilted violet, going in towards the center, but I don't want some of those colors to touch. Like the wilted violet and the dried marigold, I'm gonna just kind of fade off into white so they don't touch and make mud. Before I move on to my stencil, I'm gonna trim this panel down, and I'm going to use the Sweet Stacks rectangle die, just line that up and die cut this out so my piece is already trimmed down. Now I'm going to bring in the Radiant background stencil, and I'm going to center that as best as I can, hold it down with my magnets from my Make Art station, and then I'm going to apply some gold Glitz glitter gel. I'm just going to scoop that out and smear this down into the open areas of the stencil, working my way down through the stencil, and then I'm just going to scrape off any of the excess. I can put this back into the container, and I'll wipe off my tool with a baby wipe. Once I pull up the stencil, I'm going to wash this immediately in the sink so that Glitz glitter gel doesn't harden on my stencil. While this is drying, I'm going to work on my sentiment using the Look for the Rainbow stamp set. I love that rainbow word and all these fun coordinating sentiments. I'm lining this up on 80-pound white cardstock, and I'm going to stamp this in the Intense Black ink. Make sure to push down really well on that word rainbow because it is a little bit thicker than the other two sentiments. And I love how there are coordinating dies for each of these. So I line up those dies, hold them down with some low tack tape, and die cut those out. Now it didn't take too long for my background to dry because it was pretty thin areas. I'd say maybe about 15, maybe 20 minutes that it took to be completely dry. And now I'm working on the background, aligning those clouds all over, kind of scattering them on the sides and in the middle. I'm going to use some foam squares to attach these and just make the bottom of the cloud as straight as I can. I have my sentiment kind of placed in there as a placeholder so I know where it's going to go and where I can attach my clouds. And I like using my tweezers to hold my clouds. It kind of keeps my fingers out of the way so I can really see where my clouds are going to go and how it looks in perspective to the rest of the card. So I'll just work my way through the card front, working my way down towards the bottom, aligning those clouds. And then anything hanging off, I am going to trim those off with a pair of non-stick scissors, and I'm going to save these pieces because I can use them again to attach to the card and kind of fill in maybe some open areas there. I really love having this whole panel of clouds. The foam squares work really well for attaching these clouds to that textured background, but if you don't want to add too much dimension, you could always use some liquid glue. I think would hold up really well. Now for the word rainbow, some of it is going to overlap the cloud. So I trimmed down some smaller foam squares, added it to the top portion of the word rainbow, and then I'm going to take some liquid glue and add it to the bottom portion that is going to be overlapping the cloud. Then I can line that up so it's going to have that overlap and the rest of it is on that textured background. For the part that's going to go under the word rainbow, I'm just going to attach that with liquid glue and it's going to go right on top of the cloud. I have a little bit of overhang, but I didn't add any foam square behind that. I thought it would be supported perfectly fine. And then for the top portion of the sentiment, I did add some small foam squares behind that. Normally when I attach my panels to card bases, I usually like to use some foam sheets, but since I have dimension on my clouds, I'm just going to go ahead, add tape runner behind this panel, and add this to a side folding card base that is an A2 size, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I thought about adding some gems to this, but I didn't want to get too busy or carried away with this. So that is going to finish off the card project for today. I hope you enjoyed today's video and any tips and tricks that you may have found along the way. Thanks so much for joining me today.